Greetings, brothers. My name is Kevin Scott, and I am the current historian for the Chicago Alumni Chapter. This video is the first in a series of interviews that I will be conducting to archive the lives of our Chicago alumni brothers in their own words. Today, I am with past Province Polemarch, Brother Eldridge Freeman Jr.
Eldridge T. Freeman Jr.
Eldridge T. Freeman Jr. Good evening, Brother Freeman.
Good evening, Brother Scott.
And thank you for allowing me this opportunity to interview
It's
you.
my pleasure.
To begin off, Brother Freeman, I'd like for you to share some information about your life, things such as where you were born, where you grew up, your family, and personal and professional life.
Okay. First of all, a lot of people think that I was born in Chicago, which is not true. I was born in a small town, well, the fourth largest city in Kentucky, Paducah, Kentucky. And after leaving Paducah, I came to Chicago briefly and was drafted into the Navy in World War II. I served in the Navy for 2 years, and I obtained the rank of Petty Officer 3rd Class Electrician. From there, I went to Knoxville College in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I became a Kappa in Beta Phi. I was a charter member of the Scrollers Club for Beta Phi, but because of the fact that they would not make freshmen, I was not a charter member. But regardless of that fact, I am so proud to be a Kappa. And let me say this to you. When I was at Knoxville, I played basketball, football, baseball, and I was captain of the tennis team. And my coach, football, was an alpha. And he came to my room one day, and after they had their little initiation meeting where they turned in the letters, wanted applications and wanted to be alphas. Right. He came to my room and he said, everybody at Knoxville called me Paducah. He said, Paducah, I have 9 letters of application to Alpha Phi Alpha, and the only thing that is missing is I don't have your number. And I was laying up in my bed. I got up and I said, Coach, let me say this to you. No disrespect, but if I cannot be a Kappa, I'm not going to be anything. So that was my beginning, because I had already made up my mind when I went to Knoxville that I was going to be a Kappa. And I never went to any of the introductory meetings for the other fraternities that we had on campus, because I just wasn't interested. I was always interested in being a Kappa, because my high school principal was a Kappa, my basketball and football coach in high school were Kappas, my family doctor was a Kappa.
Oh, wow.
So there was just no way that I was going to be anything but Kappa. So after leaving Knoxville, where I was Dean of Pledgees and President of the senior class of 1950, for any of you who were born.
Just a little bit.
I came back to Paducah, and I worked in the atomic energy plant at Shawnee, Illinois. And I was the first and only black personnel employee out of 1,100. And they had a workforce of 35,000 people, personnel.
Wow.
So I could not stand, after being around the world in the Navy and having my college training, I could not tolerate the social activities in a small town. So I left and I came to Chicago. And after I was here, I came back to Chicago in August of '51. I met my wife in June of '52, and Janice and I married in November of 52.
Wow.
So that was pretty, both of us kind of made up our mind.
Right. Just like you had your mind made up about Kappa the whole
That's
time.
right.
You knew what you wanted when you saw it.
First time I saw it. And Janice has been the rock in my life. I have two wonderful children, Eldridge T. Freeman III and Joyce Liddell Freeman Heron. And he is a Kappa and a life member. We raised two nephews, Roy and James Reed. Both are Kappas. And one is a PhD in Sacramento, California, and the other one owns his own company in San Francisco. So I would say that Janice was not only a good mother, but she was also a good aunt, and directed with some of my assistants, she did most of it, directions that we gave our children. All of the children that we had influence on their lives in my family, college graduates. All the men in my family that are eligible are Kappas. So I'm rather proud of that, because I think that Kappa Alpha Psi has meant so much to me, as I am sure it has meant to a lot of people. And I feel that whatever I can do, or whatever I have done for Kappa, it is a small measure of what Kappa has done for me. I have met some fine men in Kappa. I had the privilege of knowing personally 4 of the last founders of Kappa. I had the privilege of being, when I was provincial Polemarch, I took founder Irvin to every speaking engagement, every chapter that I visited. I was the first province Polemarch to visit all of the chapters in the province. I was Polemarch from 1966 to 1971. I had 5 years yet. And I began with Chicago alumni, and in 1960, although my wedding reception was in the old Kappa house there on Ellis.
Okay, the one on Ellis.
Yeah, and because I was in the National Guard, and I had my profession as a policeman, it took so much of my time that I just didn't have the time, I thought, now I know better, to be bothered, I would say. And I think too many of our brothers now have that same philosophy, just too busy to be bothered. So I came back to Kappa in 1960. I became the senior vice Polemarch of Chicago alumni in 1963. In 1964, for personal reasons, I became a principal in Chicago Heights. So I worked in Chicago Heights, and I organized the Chicago Heights Alumni Chapter, which was chartered in 1965. And during that time, this was just before I became Province Polemarch. I had been on the board of directors of the North Central Province, the senior vice Polemarch, owned forever, it seemed. So I thought I was pretty well prepared to be the Polemarch. Under my regime, one of the things that, I don't know if you'll be interested in this, that I thought that we accomplished that I wish we could resurrect right now, and that is I had a provincial Founders Day where we had all of the Grand Board, the Grand Polemarch, the Executive Secretary down to Bloomington for Founders Day. It was in January. And if you note in the history of Kappa, you'll see that to be authentic. The other thing that I'm really proud of is that I was the first province Polemarch to allow my junior vice Polemarch to conduct the meetings in the province, because I was under the influence of Brother Irvin, Founder Irvin, I should say. And he always would say to me, Brother Freeman, this is an undergraduate fraternity. And these young men, we say we're teaching them and training them for leadership. How are they going to learn if we don't give them the opportunity? And I embrace that philosophy. I embrace that philosophy today. That if we don't give our young brothers an opportunity, yeah, they're going to make mistakes. We made mistakes. I don't want to start counting the mistakes that I made. But if we do not give them an opportunity for leadership, how in the world are we going to train them for leadership?
Exactly.
It just doesn't make sense. So after I was the province Polemarch, the other thing that I'm so proud of is that I never left the fraternity after my terms were over as province Polemarch. I have been active ever since, and it's kind of nice because my political career is over. I don't have to run for any office. I can say most of the things I want to say because I don't owe too many people a heck of a lot. You know, that may be taken as being arrogant, but I'm not. It's just the truth. Sometimes the truth will set you free, and the idea that you can always say to someone when you're talking to, when you're asking a favor, I'm not looking for a job. I would like for you to do this with my brothers, my fraternity. You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's a good feeling. I have been a Kappa for 58 years. And February 28th, it will be 59.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you this. You touched on a lot of the questions I have prepared, which is great. Might not, by the end of the night, I might not need to look too much at the sheet.
Well, anything you want to say is fine
great.
with me. If it's a Kappa Alpha Psi, I'm for it.
Let me ask you this. I want to go back a little bit to the time frame when you pledged Kappa.
All right.
And during that, you said that the chapter was Beta Phi.
Beta Phi.
Beta Phi. And what year?
It was formed in 46, chartered in 46, and I was a member, a charter member of the Scrollers Club.
Right. And during that time, can you recall what your line name, your name of your line was?
The Fabulous 14.
Fabulous 14.
Yeah, because all of us, all but two on that line were athletes. And at that time, this was before your time, Kappas were considered the pretty boys on the campus. And we were the leaders, no question about that. And I had 14 on my line. About 6 of them I keep in pretty close contact. A lot of them are dead, deceased, I should say.
Right. And out of the ones that have not passed on, do you still conversate
with? Oh,
with
yes,
some?
indeed. Reuben Smart, who I played football and basketball and baseball with, lives in Grand Rapids, and he is a noted educational person in Grand Rapids. You go to Grand Rapids and ask Bobby Smart, everybody knows him. And I continually keep in contact with him. Swing Jordan, and that's, you know, we have all these nicknames for people. He was a fantastic basketball player, and that's how they call him Swing. Worked for a pharmaceutical company for 30 years. He's now retired. Bobby's retired too. And those those men are all Swing is not a Kappa, but Bobby is. But Swing wanted to be a Kappa, I'm certain of that, because that's all he hung out with.
Right.
He was a Sigma, and so he didn't have many brothers to hang out with. That's the truth. But while I was in Knoxville, I lettered in tennis, football, basketball, and baseball, and I was also president of my senior class when we graduated. So I wanted to make that emphasis because I want the young people who will see this after I have been burned up will understand that we in Kappa really promote academics. Because I have said to my grandchildren, if you do not take care of the business, you will not have anything to take care of your pleasure. So it's a lose-lose situation.
And let me ask you, did any of your line brothers happen to achieve a prominent office either within the fraternity? Well, you told me about things in their professional life,
Yeah.
but in the fraternity, have they happened to receive any high offices within the
If
fraternity?
so, I am not aware.
Okay.
I'm just not aware, and it might be that the reason that I'm not aware is that I have not made inquiry into that facet of their life.
Okay. All right. What about if I can bring you back to
Okay.
that time frame of initiation into the fraternity? How would you define initiation as it occurred to you during that time frame of the fraternity?
Barbaric.
Okay. Well, I guess that says it all. And then let me ask you this: what is your opinion of the pledge program versus membership intake?
Well, I've been asked that question because most of the associates that I've had that are undergraduates have often asked me that. And for the sake of this historical recording, I'll answer it. But I have always said to them, regardless of what I think, the intake program is the law of the fraternity. And when I was inducted into this great fraternity, I promised that I would uphold the Constitution, the statutes of this fraternity. Now, if you're asking me if there needs to be some improvements made in intake, because I certainly think that they should be, because one of the fallacies that I see in the intake program, there's not the opportunity to really bond with your brother. It's more of an individual thing. So when you are made, I don't believe, this is my opinion, that you feel that brotherly spirit that we felt when I was made. Now, I did have one problem with that pledge program, and I used to say to a couple of my brothers who believed the same thing, most of them believed, they're just afraid to say it, that how can you beat a guy till he bleeds or till he succumbs, and after it's all over, you say to him, welcome, brother.
Right.
You see, I've never been able to reconcile that. And I can truthfully say that after I left Knoxville College, I have never, ever been physical with any member coming into this fraternity, even before the intake program, because I just did not believe in the brutality and the cruelty of that. And I know some of my brothers disagree, and that's their privilege.
Right.
But I just never believed that you could do that. And it could speak to the fact that when a lot of brothers are made, you don't hear from them again. And of course, there are those brothers that just want to be card carriers, and those brothers who said for the prestige of being in this great fraternity, I'm a Kappa, that have made not one single contribution to the organization.
Exactly.
And I have a problem with that. But different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Well, tell me this. Tell me how the experiences as a Kappa in those days you believe has changed, or you have seen changes throughout the years comparatively.
I'm glad you asked that. I'll give you an example, and perhaps you will be able to understand what I mean. I was getting ready to go to the 50th anniversary in Bloomington, and we were at the Kappa house, and a young man came in from New York, had just passed the bar, and his name was Etcherson. And he came to the house, and there was only about 5, 6 of us, you know, at the house. And he said, well, I heard about the house, and I want to come by and see my brothers. He didn't have a place to stay. So he said, well, is there a wire around here? I said, what do you mean? You're not registered in a hotel? He said, no. I said, well, you come out to my house. So I brought him out here and put him up for the night and drove him to Bloomington. Now that's the, you know, I didn't know him
From a can of paint.
That's right. and I didn't think anything of it.
Right.
The latest one that I can remember, and please, you know, I have 1,000, but I'm trying to give you the ones that I think are kind of significant. Brother Gold was a very, very, very active undergraduate in the fraternity. In fact, he was the junior Grand Vice Polemarch at one time. Was studying for his CPA. And he called me, and he said, Brother Freeman, do you know of any inexpensive place that I can stay in Chicago for 2 weeks? I'm going to study for my CPA. I said, you might think about that, Brother Gold. I said, just come to my house. So I was working then as a professor at Chicago State University. So I collected for him a lot of the materials that I thought was helpful. And I brought it over, and he studied for about 2 weeks. Passed all phases of it in his first try. And he's now at Clark, Atlanta University, teaching accounting.
Okay.
I am not certain that Brother Gold is still active, but he was a very dynamic young man. So those are two of the things. And by the way, he didn't pay any rent, board, or anything like that. He was just became a member of the family. So those are the kinds of Kappas that I have run across in my life.
Right.
I went to my very first job out of college. I was a jewelry salesman. You know, college jewelry, you know, the rings.
Right.
All of those things that go with graduation. And my territory was Arkansas, Missouri, and I want to say Mississippi, but it wasn't. Oklahoma.
Okay.
And one day my car broke down. It was a used car. I just got out of college. But it was used then because my dad had bought me this convertible as a sophomore in college. And this, of course, was 50. And the timing belt went out. So the guy pulled up and said, well, I can fix it, but it's going to take me a couple of days to fix it. I'm going to give you my number, and you leave the car with me, and call me in 2 days. So I went back to Springfield, Missouri. And there I met a Kappa who had about 8 rooms that he had built in apartments that he rented to teachers and students. And he said, brother, he had never met me. He said, well, brother, you have a place to stay? I said, no, is there a colored hotel? He said, you wouldn't want to stay there. He said, you stay with me. And he put me up for 4 days. That's how long it took the fella to fix it. And I got on the bus and went back to a small town in Missouri and picked up a car. Now these are gestures of brotherhood that you just can't forget.
Right.
Now I've had many more that have been so kind to me. I guess one of my proteges, and he was always rebellious, was Brother Dan Dixon. He was one of the young Turks that came up during my reign as Province Polemarch. Dan was always very intelligent, even as an undergraduate. And he would challenge you. Do you hear me? Right. You think he challenges now? He would challenge you. And I've always appreciated that, because I've always said that anytime that I'm the superior or the boss of anything, I don't want anybody around me that I don't believe is smarter than I am, because I can't learn anything from a dummy. Okay. I don't want anybody around me that always thinks I'm right, because I'm not. That's enough of me there.
Okay, all right. Well, how about we can change gears a little bit.
All right.
And tell us about different types of struggles that you may have encountered as a young professional.
Okay. My first real encounter with racism in America, although I was brought up in a segregated society, at that time I was not educated, and I thought that's just the way it was supposed to be. But when I finished college, I was in Oklahoma, and my dad called me, or I called him, and he said, well, Junior, why don't you come home? There are some government jobs in Decatur, Illinois that are opening up, and you fit the bill. And one was a personnel counselor, and my major had been sociology, minor physical education and health, and history. So I rushed home, and we drove up to Decatur, because when I made an application, they sent me a reply setting up an interview. When I got there, everybody seemed to be astonished. So I went into the manager's office, and he said, well, Mr. Freeman, I'm very sorry you had to make that trip from Tuca, but those positions have been filled. He says, now, I do have some positions in the lumber yard, and they pay pretty good money. It's a government job. I said, thanks, but no thanks. And that was my first encounter.
And how old were you at that time?
I was at, let's see, about 21.
Okay.
About 21. And I had an encounter that you young people might be interested in when I was playing basketball. We traveled in 2 cars because the school couldn't afford a bus. And of course they had to run a bus when we traveled with the football team, because it would take a lot of cars. So we stopped at a place in Norway, South Carolina, on the way to Allen University in Columbia. And it was a Texaco station. So I've always, I was only the one on the team that could drive. Even the coach couldn't drive. So I was driving, so I was sitting there, I asked one of the players, I said, Peckerwood, ask that big Peckerwood, that's what we call him then, where's his bathroom? So he hollered out the door and says, hey, where's your washroom? And this guy was about 6'5", rosy cheeks, weighed about 300 pounds, and he was pumping gas. So he looked around and said, we don't have no washroom. So I looked at Petway and I said, that picker was lying. I said, I haven't seen a filling station in my life didn't have a washroom. So they said, well, you're so bad, why don't you go and see? That was a dare to me. I went in there, and sure enough, boy, that station was clean as you could be. And sure enough, over in the corner was a washroom. So I went in there, and before I could get my pants ready, this guy was standing in front of me with a 45. And he said, big boy, I told you, I ain't got no washroom for you. Well, I didn't have to go to the washroom until I got to Columbia. And, you know, I could just tell you a whole lot of things, but it would take too much time. But those three things really, you know, stick out in my mind. And let me tell you one more. And I shudder to think of what would happen to me if I had followed what my colleagues wanted me to. I was about 12 years old. I was a paper boy for the Louisville Courier-Journal. And the Paducah Sun-Times wouldn't allow blacks to deliver their papers. But the Courier-Journal, because they were trying to get into that market, did. So I won a contest, and the contest was that the manager would take the three that won, the highest three on subscriptions, and take them on an all-day trip, motor trip. Now, for a 12-year-old man, that was it.
Right.
So we went to a place called Saxton, Missouri. And then we went to several other places. And on the way back, outside of Saxton, Missouri, these white fellas, I was only black, saw this roadhouse and said, let's stop there. Of course, I didn't want to stop. So we went in and we all ordered beer. I'm 12 years old. And they kept telling me, yeah, that's where the girls dance. Now, the Lord was on my side, or else I would have been an Emmett Till. Right. About 15 seconds after the guy asked me to ask one of the white girls to dance, about 4 of them came up to us and told my manager, get that nigga out of here. Now, what would have happened to me if I'd asked one of them white girls to dance?
I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
That's exactly right. So that was the most traumatic, and the 45 been pulled on that I had during the segregation years. I've had some during so-called freedom years too.
Right. Now, how much of a role did Kappa play in preparing you to be a leader in your professional life?
Well, ever since I joined Kappa, I have been part of the administration. When, as an undergraduate, I was Dean of Pledges and then Vice Polemarch of Beta Phi. Then when I got out of Knoxville and became a member of Chicago alumni, I became the senior vice Polemarch. From there, I became Polemarch. I organized Chicago Heights alumni, so I was his first Polemarch. From that point, I went to senior vice Polemarch of the province and to province Polemarch. In every one of those steps, I learned how to be a leader, because I don't want to say it's not true today, maybe it is, that in those days, the alumni brothers really taught you how to be leaders. And we had some doggone good role models. Earl Dickerson, C. Roger Wilson, Dr. Dumas, James Montgomery. He's not that much older than I am, but he was one of the leaders. And I could just go on for the rest of the evening telling you how much those older men meant to me. Brother Singleton, Brother Bonds, Dennis, who took an active part and an active role to make sure not only did I know something about Kappa, but I was doing the right thing about Kappa. Now, I think you've heard me brag that my life membership pin is 106. I'm the 106th member to become a life member in Kappa Alpha Psi. So if anyone tells you that Brother Freeman doesn't love Kappa, you say, wait a minute, hold on.
Well, let me ask you this. With those different offices that you told me that you held, what prompted you to run for the very first office that you held?
That I held?
Yes.
I was in a meeting in South Bend, Indiana. And Brother Henry Bennett Sr. was the province Polemarch. And for some reason, now, you know, I could lie and say, well, I just was such a shining star. But that wasn't the case. For some reason, he saw something in me. And he pulled me over to the side and said, Brother Freeman, I think in a couple of years, you're going to be ready for leadership in this fraternity. At the next provincial meeting, he asked me to run for senior vice president. And that was my start. Now, you have to also remember that during that time, I was in the National Guard, and I went in the National Guard as a second lieutenant. I got a direct commission. And I retired after 24 years of active duty and reserve service as a lieutenant colonel. I went to about 35 military schools, because what I did was during the summer when I was teaching, I would go to the military schools during the summer, and that was my summer money.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Right.
So I always had a plan. Sometimes the plans didn't work out to my planning, but I always had a plan. And today those plans have paid off.
Okay. Tell me, well, I think you covered that. Let me ask you this. What are some of your recollections of the founders that you told me that you...
Oh, okay. Brother Grant was a dentist, and he was deeply seated in Kappa. He would do anything for the undergraduates. So would Brother Irvin. Now the other two that I knew, I didn't know that well. You know, I only met them at the Grand Chapter, although they, one other, I think his name right now, was Doctor.
Blakemore?
No.
Oh, here we go.
Can't think of his name.
Well, we got Dr. Blakemore. We got...
Well, he was a physician. And you see, I'm getting over
Ezra Alexander?
Yes. Dr. Ezra Alexander was a physician. And those founders really took an interest in undergraduates. And I am so grateful that they did. And today, one of the things that I am the most proud of in my political life in the fraternity is that I took Brother Irvin in his latter stages to every chapter, every speech that I ever gave. You know, banquets, Founders Day. We didn't have a Metro Founders Day then. Every chapter had its Founders Day, and sometimes in a year I'd give 6 different speeches.
Okay.
And each time, whatever city that it was, I would take Brother Irvin and Brother O'Neill, and I learned more about Kappa Alpha Psi from driving my car and those two sitting in the car discussing what happened from 1911 to that day. And I wouldn't, you know, I talk a lot now, but then I wouldn't say a word.
You taking it all in?
I just listened. And he wondered, let me tell you another thing too, and you get me to talking, what Kappa meant then. We had the late brother Floyd Campbell, who was a past province Polemarch, was a dentist. And Brother Irvin needed some dental work. So he said to Brother Irvin, well, if you can get over to Milwaukee, I'll give you, I'll do everything that's needed to be done gratis. And so he said, Brother Irvin said, well, I know somebody can get. So for about a month, every Saturday, I drove Brother Irvin to his dental appointment in Milwaukee and was glad to do it. You know, I didn't think it was a chore. I did not think that it was putting me out of the way. So every Saturday, somebody would say, well, El, what are you going to do Saturday? I can't play golf today. And I would take Brother Irvin for 1 month, and he finally got his teeth fixed. And for that, he was ever so grateful that he didn't have to be, because I was just so happy to do it.
Right.
And the other thing that I'm happy about is that my son, Eldridge T. Freeman III, he's a life member too, was penned by Brother Irvin. And he's very proud of that. So in my career in Kappa Alpha Psi has been one of learning, sharing, camaraderie. I don't know of any group that I'd rather be with than a bunch of Kappas. I just don't know of any group.
With you.
And I belong to, I won't give my resume, I belong to a whole lot of organizations. But of all those organizations, I get the most pleasure out of being with my Kappa brothers.
And that brings us to the next question, which I think I know the answer to by what you've been saying, but I'll ask you anyway. Do you have a favorite Kappa brother or someone that you admire the most out of all your Kappa brothers that you have? Present and past.
Past. Well,
included.
it's very difficult for me to differentiate between, because I like most of them. I can tell you this, who probably had the most influence over me was Brother Joseph O'Neill and Brother Irvin. Because as a young man, I was around them more than most young people. And Brother Irvin got up in a Grand Chapter meeting, and he said, I hope I live long enough, I was province Polemarch then, to see Brother Eldridge Freeman, Grand Polemarch. Well, that was a kiss of death, because, you know, I was kind of rebel, man. One year, my friend from the Midwest province, McAfee, Brother McAfee, we proposed 33 changes to the Constitution and the statute.
All at one time?
All at one time! But that's the kind of rebel. So when I look at young tourists like Darrell Reed and Dan Dixon and the lawyer. Brown, Willis Brown. I just have to laugh because I say, you know, I see so much of me when I was that age in Kappa Alpha Psi, and I can appreciate it. I can appreciate it. Let me tell you this too.
Okay.
I've gotten in trouble too by being such a staunch Kappa. When I was director of the Evening College of Business for Chicago State University, I had the authority to hire and fire instructors for the evening college. So naturally, you know, I didn't hire them because they were Kappa. I hired them because they were Kappa, happened to be Kappa, and they was the best people. So the president of the college called me over, of the university called me over, and says, "Yeah, I got some disturbing news." Now he was Alpha. He said, "They tell me that you won't hire any of the male instructors over there unless they're Kappas." I said, "Man, that's not true. That is just patently untrue." I said, "You told me when you appointed me, and correct me if I'm wrong, to hire the best people that I knew. And the best people I knew, the most qualified people I knew, just happened to be Kappas."
Can't blame you for that.
So Ken Hennings, Harry Hardwick, Willis Brown, late brother John Lassiter, I hired them all. And they were good Kappas and good instructors too. So that's my dedication to Kappa Alpha Psi.
Okay. How would you describe an ideal Kappa from your perspective?
Oh, from my perspective, an ideal Kappa is thinking of the organization first, its province next, its chapter next, and himself last.
Okay.
And I think when you start or have that philosophy, that you get away from I and me, and it becomes we and us. And I think that you then become more inclusive, you know, of the organization.
Okay.
Because anytime you put yourself or anybody else before this great fraternity of ours, you are, I think, treading on dangerous soil.
What type of role do you believe the senior Kappas should play in the fraternity?
Well, one of the things that I have not liked, and maybe there's some more to it, is that our young brothers who are in leadership role in the Chicago Alumni Chapter don't want to hear from the senior members. They say they do, but they don't. And they don't. Why can I say that? Because they never discuss your ideas. You understand? The board meeting or any place else. Now, everything I say, or everything Dan Dixon says, everything Major Armstead says, Mel Hopkins, may not be in the best interest of Chicago alumni. But we all could not be wrong. And for a long time, and I think if Harry Reid had stayed in a year longer, he was going to form a past Polemarch council. Wouldn't have any political power. You understand?
Okay.
But just a suggestive sounding board for our leaders. And I thought that was a wonderful idea. One of the things that you might, I don't know if you were there, see, I've been very candid now, you say I could be. when we were getting ready to go to this last conference, and I, in open meeting, asked the Polemarch, I said, have you all organized yourself for this meeting politically? I said, now remember, you have 6 votes. Only Indianapolis alumni has that many. And I said that because you have the undergraduate chapter, you really have 9. And I said, oh yeah, we've taken care of that. We have, see, I'm putting all this down because it's true. We've made some calls and whatnot. What did we get out of it? A delegate, not a delegate, but an appointment to the nominating committee, which doesn't mean a doggone thing. And what else? We had, yeah, the grand parliamentarian. He was going to be there anyway. You see, you can't run 5 or 6 people for offices in the province when you have 26 other chapters, because it's a give and take. And if you're always taking, the other chapters are going to what? Get tired of you. You see what I mean? And that's one of the reasons I believe that Chicago alumni has lost some of its luster. There's no reason for that. With the number that we have, with the brain power we have, with the experience we have, we should be the leaders, not Indianapolis alumni. And that's my biggest beef. Now I want you to know before we leave, when I came back to the chapter after 40 years, I told Brother Reed, the 2 Brother Reeds, I am not coming back to hold any office. I am not coming back to run for any office, because I have had my opportunities to show the fraternity what leadership skills I have. And if I would do that, then it would give the brothers the wrong impression that I thought that I was the only one who could do it. And that would be patently wrong. There are a lot of brothers smarter than me. A lot of brothers that have more energy than me. And a lot of brothers are just as good a Kappa as I am. So I think when you pass these things around and support one another, it's been my philosophy that I'm never ever against somebody. I'm always for the best person I think. Right. I could be wrong. Is suited, you know, for that office. And I'm just so glad, Brother Scott, to see you taking this kind of initiative, not because you're interviewing me, but because I have known historians who sit there for 8 years and not publish one paper. I can't say that about Brother Pettis. In 1 year, Brother Pettis did more than all of the historians that I have known over the last 40-some years. Do you hear me? Yeah. And that is not to say because you haven't had your chance, that you won't do better. And if you don't do better, I'll be disappointed. Because the next person should always be an improvement. Right. And if that's not, then we go into regression. Right. We can't have that. So.
Exactly. And that, to say that, I want to ask you this next question.
Yeah.
I want to know your opinion about if you feel as though if we are carrying out the vision of what you believe the vision of the founders is. We as a fraternity.
We as a fraternity?
Yes.
No.
And how are we not doing that?
In the first place, we were supposed to be supportive of undergraduates. Supportive. Now we run it. African American Greek letter organizations are the only Greek letter organizations in the history of the country that totally controls the fraternity.
Why do you think that it's that way? What happened?
Well, I think that social activities made it so because of the lack of socialization that we had in 1911. Fraternities were then more of a social outlet because African Americans in that era did not have social intellectual outlets. Oh yeah, we had clubs and we had these other organizations, you know, but we didn't have a social outlet for intellectual African Americans.
Okay.
And that's when you hear a lot of people say, when things go wrong, hey, wait a minute, I thought we were a college education organization. And that's what, of course, they mean.
Right.
And I don't say, and please don't misunderstand that statement, is to say that every member of Kappa Alpha Psi has to be a graduate from college. To me, if you qualified to be a member as an undergraduate and you left school for whatever reason you left school, you're still a Kappa.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
Right.
So I don't differentiate either between people who were made under the pledge program and people who were made under the intake program. I judge them by their actions. If those brothers that were made in intake come out to be good Kappas, work hard for the chapter and for the organization, in my mind, they are just as good and equal to brothers that were made as pledges.
Okay. So, I want to find out from you, do you believe that there are what pros and cons exist in our fraternity as a whole and within our own Chicago Alumni Chapter?
Well, number one, oh yeah, I have grandsons at Kappa too. Just made this last time.
What's his name?
Bruce Herron. His father played football for the Bears for 6 years. Linebacker.
Okay.
Wore number 51. He wasn't as good as Buckets, but he's now the global marketing director of a multi-billion-dollar corporation that makes safety things. So he finished college too. He's one of the few that had his degree when he went to pro ball. One of the things that really, really disturbs me is that we are not politically together as a chapter. For instance, I told you that I asked the people about had they made the necessary contacts to make sure that some of the brothers would be elected. They said yes. So when Nicholson was the province Polemarch, I approached him and I said, you know, Theta Zeta is just coming back online. And I said that Brother Pettis is the faculty advisor over there. So why don't we allow Chicago alumni to be its alumni chapter? Although I knew we had, what, Kappa Phi?
Kappa Phi.
Yeah. And I was not thinking because my grandson was there. You know what I was thinking about? That would add 3 more votes to this block. We'd have 12. Am I not right?
Right.
But the young...
Even though you're out of the political world, you're still thinking political
Oh, yes,
for the
indeed.
sake of the
I
chapter.
don't run for the sake of the chapter. I go in office. They couldn't appoint me to any office. First place, I'm too damn old. And what would I look like being in office or something? But I was thinking about the chapter. We keep talking about in chapter meetings. We keep talking about bringing Chicago alumni back to its position of number 1 in this province and in this country, because we were the first alumni chapter. But we don't do anything about it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? We just do a lot of talking when there are a lot of things that we could do. Only, and I don't know if Indianapolis has 3 past provincial Polemarchs. I believe Chicago alumni is the only chapter that has 3 active past province Polemarchs. You see. Now down the line there, Brother Scott, all of us have exerted some influence around this province. All right, on the national level. One of our big problems in the North Central province, and for the reason that we haven't had a grand Polemarch since C. Roger Wilson, is that we have nothing to offer. We don't have enough active chapters in the province to offer somebody our support if they'll support us. Do you hear me? Now the South, the Southern, and the Southwest province, they're running it. They have chosen the next 7 or 8 grand Polemarchs. Already. And we sit back fat, dumb, and happy and won't take advantage of the things that we should, because we are all encrousted in this little world of ours and not thinking of the big picture. And Brother Scott, as long as we do that, we are going to be relegated to a subordinate role. The other thing I think about it is how they have organized the Grand Board and the provinces. They have organized them where they elect Grand Board members from whatever province they want because of that vote. But if we would elect province Polemarchs, make the province Polemarchs the Grand Board of Directors, then they would not only have an allegiance to the Grand Polemarch, because he is the he is the boss, but they would have to have some allegiance to what we think. Right. So then the Grand Polemarch would get a better view from 12 provinces of what the brothers really like, really want, really will support. Instead of this autocratic thing of taking $7 million out of our life membership fund to correct a colossal mistake in the reconstruction of the house down there in Philadelphia. And that's another thing, the house in Philadelphia should have never been there. Should have been in Chicago or at least in Bloomington. Should have been in the mother province of this fraternity. So these are my concerns, and I have spoken publicly on them. When I spoke to the Metro Founders Day, I don't know what year it was. That was my topic: the reorganization of the superstructure, I said, of Kappa Alpha Psi. And you know, the Grand Chapter representative was crunching, oh shit, I don't miss it. But and Dan Dixon has been a very, very ordinate supporter of that philosophy. And he has, when he was Providence Polemarch, he tried to get it done. Not sure about Michael, because I wasn't as close to Michael as an undergraduate as I was to Dan, because Michael's much younger. Right. You understand? But I must say that he has given me all the deference that I deserve, and perhaps more. I'm talking about Michael Houston. And I think he's a true Kappa. I think he has, we don't always agree, and I don't always agree, Dan. But we don't always agree, but I think he has the interest of this fraternity in his heart. You know, I was such a rebel, I'm rambling now, that at a grand chapter meeting, I called a point of order on the Grand Polemarch that had appointed me, and won. Is that a rebel?
Yeah, that's a rebel. You may have set a record that hasn't been broken yet.
I tell you. And it was all in the interest of one of my undergraduates who had sent his petition in for the nominating chair, and they refused to say it didn't get in on time. And he said it was there 2 weeks before the deadline. And I said, well, I believe him. I don't believe you, Earl Morris. I believe him. And so the Grand Polemarch then ruled on it. Said, I ruled that Brother Darrell Reed is not eligible. And I said, I call for a point of order on the Grand Polemarch. First person to vote was Brother Irvin. See, the founders voted first, and he voted to support me. Well, all the undergraduate chapter just fell right in. Now, you know, and I want to say that because I don't want anybody to think that I thought then or think now that it was because of my popularity or leadership that I won. It was because Brother Irvin got on my side.
They followed suit.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you have to know, my first dean told me one time, he says, Al, before you go in a political situation at this university, count your votes first.
Good advice. Good advice.
You know, I've never lost but 2 elections in my whole life in Kappa, and that was to the Grand Board. Lost one by 7 votes, and the next one by 19 votes. And it was all set up. You know, I didn't have a chance. You know, you said I could be candid.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
All right.
Without a doubt.
Let me tell you, may I say this too, that Brother Earl Dickerson, Brother Wheeler, Brother C. Roger Wilson, Brother Gary. You see how I forget people? Bennett, Brother Dumas, Brother Singleton were all Kappas that were Kappa through and through. Everybody thought that Brother Dumas was a graduate of the University of Illinois because he bought furniture for the house down there. He bailed out those guys, those brothers so many times. But he was a graduate of Alcorn State University in Mississippi. They have a building down there built named for him.
Is that right?
Yeah. And but what I'm saying to you, these were Kappas that believed that this was an undergraduate fraternity.
And he supported it.
And they supported that. Now, these undergraduates go get in trouble sometimes. I think that the intake program was born out of necessity, because if they had been allowed to continue down that path of pledging, we would be just like the Omegas on the verge of bankruptcy. Because we live in a different era. It's a violent era.
Right.
When I was coming up, if you and I couldn't get on our shit, we settled with our dukes.
It's over with after
And
that.
if you beat me, I said, okay, you the man. It was over.
It's over.
But now they go home and get a pistol.
And just for the historical purpose,
All right.
of all the brothers that you named off a
Yeah.
moment ago, those are all past Chicago alumni Polemarchs.
That is absolutely correct. And 2 of them were past Grand Polemarchs. And all brilliant men. Now, of all of those people, I think C. Roger Wilson was probably the one that worked the hardest for Kappa Alpha Psi. Not taking away from anything.
Earl B. Dickerson.
Yeah, Earl B. and Singleton and Dumas and O'Neill and all those people. No, not taken away from them. And I have been the beneficiary of an undue show of brotherhood from my Chicago alumni brothers. I want you to know that. Brother Reed, Brother Williams, Brother Pettis, all of them, Brother Hobson, Brother Armstead, Brother Dickerson, Brother Dick, you know what I'm trying to say, not Dickerson, Dan Dixon, all have been just very, and Brother Williams too, Judge Williams, he has. But of all of them, Pettis has just been my rock. A lot of the things that I would never ever attend, because I'm a proud person. And this arthritis, old age has gotten me so it's very difficult sometimes for me to walk. And he never complains, man. He says, come on, you're going. And he takes me and puts up with my cantankerous self. And I have to give him special privileges. And I'm certain, as I sit here with you, from the start that you have demonstrated to me, that you're going to be a good historian.
Well, I'm trying my best.
Yeah, I believe that with all my heart.
Definitely
And if
trying.
you're not, Brother Scott, I'm going to tell you about it.
And I don't want to hear it. So I definitely want to keep the compliments flowing. And let me ask you this. One of the last ones I have on the sheet.
All right.
What are your hopes and aspirations for the future of Kappa Alpha Psi?
Well, the hopes and the aspirations that I have for Kappa Alpha Psi is that we will get back to the brotherhood that I knew when I crossed the burning sands in 1950. They would care about one another. One of the things that just really infuriates me is the Grand Chapter. Now, I know it's much larger than when I was on the political scene, but it just seems to me that there should be a couple of days that we cut down on the social activity and devote to the business of Kappa Alpha Psi. Therefore, we would have the time to let brothers express themselves with new ideas and what have you. I think that what we have now is a great authoritarian, centralized organization. And we are organized in a decentralized fashion because we have provinces. They have very little to say about what's going on, unless in the southern province and the southwest province, because they carry political weight. And that just shouldn't be. Just shouldn't be. We've had some great Polemarchs, and I think this new Polemarch that we have.
Byron.
No.
Oh, you talking about the Grand Polemarch?
Yeah.
Dwayne Murray?
Yeah. Brother Murray is going to make a great Grand Polemarch because one thing, he is willing to listen to. And I believe that that's what this fraternity is. So my hope and aspiration is that we will get back to the fundamental purpose of Kappa, being a chief, and that we will train our young undergraduates to become leaders so they can achieve. You see the logic of what I'm thinking?
Right.
And if we do our job, not think about so much of ourselves and who's going to be this and who's going to be that, and think about things that we are doing in the Chicago Alumni Chapter. That is this God Right program that we have is fantastic. And the Brother Gore is fantastic. Just fantastic. And we need 100,000 more, Brother Gore.
We'd be all right.
We'd be all right.
That's right.
You see. And to give of his time to take up with these young folk, these young men. Because if we don't do it as African American men, who will? One of the things that I'm most proud of down in my basement down there, this is another eye, I've got about 200 plaques. Maybe more. Of what people and organizations started. I've got a lot of Kappa plaques. They mean something maybe to my family and to my children and my grandchildren. Maybe that will motivate them to work hard. But the most gracious thing that could be ever said about me when I was a professor at Chicago State University, that I was a student professor. Students came first with me. Sometimes I maybe looked at it as in a selfish way, but I always thought that, hey, without these students, they would need me. They would need these buildings, and I never could walk around the campus like I was king of whatever. Because the students mean a heck of a lot to me. And then I looked at the other very important facet, that if we don't help educate these young African American men, we're going to be in trouble. Because if you look back on history and you're a historian, you will discover that no society in the history of the world has succeeded without a strong male dominance. Do you get where I'm?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Let's see. My wife often says to me, this is personal, without you here, honey, I don't know if I could have made with those two boys. Because one of them was 6'6", and one was 6'4", and the other was just 6 feet. But he thought he was 600. But you know when young men reach that puberty stage, they get rebellious against women.
Or anybody else.
Or anybody else for that matter, especially women.
Right.
And we must come back to developing leadership among our young brothers that will give them an opportunity to achieve. Now, you just can't say those words, Kappa Alpha Psi is about achievement. But you got to do something about it. And the best way I know how is to train our young undergraduates.
Hands-on.
Yes. And daughters, yes. But the daughters seem to be doing all right, Brother Scott. They seem to be doing all right. I looked in my class sometimes, and out of 35 people, I may have five young men. So the young ladies are doing all right.
And they're showing up to class every day.
Oh, yes, indeed. And they are achieving. And it's not that I don't worry about them. I worry about them in this facet of my life, is that some of the dominant society is going to take advantage of them. I'm trying to be diplomatic here.
I understand.
And if we don't, if they don't have black African American young men who can put something on the table. Now, you don't have to be a PhD. Heck no, you don't have to be that. But have something that puts something positive on the table. And that's the problem I have seen, and I know I'm rambling, with our African American society. We have told these young people that they must be doctors, and they must be teachers, and they must be lawyers, and all of these kinds of professions. And all of the other people are out there making beaucoup of money, being electricians, plumbers, policemen. You understand what I mean?
Right.
So we have been going down the wrong path, in my opinion. We should understand that I gave a speech at my graduation, high school graduation in Paducah, to a school that I couldn't attend. And we were talking about the voucher system. And I said, well, I told them that my reason for not wanting the voucher system would destroy public education is that one of the two fallacies in American education, one of the reasons that we're falling behind the rest of our counterparts, I know I'm boring you, but
no, you're fine.
I hope not, that we have exercised this philosophy of compulsory education and mass education. There are people in our society, number one, that don't want to be educated. Number two, can't be educated. And we have spent too much time in the classroom with those individuals, while the people who can be developed don't get the full attention that we should give them. I hope I'm making this clear, because I'm preaching now.
Yeah, you are.
But Kappa has helped me in that regard. Is that when I think about achievement, I often said to my family, is that over?
You keep talking.
All right. That I have never been in an organization where I didn't rise to the top.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm just so ambitious, but I just believe in what Kappa told me.
Okay.
You got to achieve.
Right. Well, I thank you for granting me the opportunity to speak with you and open up your home to us to be able to complete this video interview. And I'm sure that all the other brothers who see this will feel exactly the same way that we do, that you've enlightened us with your words and your thoughts, and it's something that's going to help us move forward with your ideas in the future.
Well, I sincerely hope so. And I just want to say in closing, I am never too busy to be in the company of Kappa men who are about a good thing.
Okay.
And you're about a good thing.
All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Brother Freeman.
sure. And Brother Scott, thank you so much. I think you're on the right track. And the second thing I think that's happening here is that you are giving the Chicago alumni another alternative. You see, we can't always think alike. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Now, with Brother I guess I'm just so prejudiced for Brother Pettis, because in 1 year he did more than a lot of people.
Well, you couldn't put that book together in a week.
No, you cannot. and see, he put it together in such a way